Hi, I'm Bill from CJ Pony Parts. When it comes to suspension modifications, many Mustang owners simply install a set of lowering springs and call it a day. But lowering springs will definitely improve your ride height as well as performance. To really take performance of your suspension to another level is going to require additional components. This 2006 behind me is owned by my friend Teresa, who competes with me on the Ride North America road race events. This car has seen a lot of miles as well as a few racetracks, and the stock suspension was starting to show its age. She contacted me looking to do a complete suspension overhaul for this year's Smoky Mountain Rally, so today we're going to install Ford Racing's handling pack on Teresa's 2006 Mustang GT. While you can piece your suspension together from different manufacturers, a kit like this from Ford Racing makes everything easy to take all the guesswork out of it for you. This is a complete suspension overhaul kit fitting your 2005 through 2014 Mustang GT Coupe. It starts with a set of Ford Racing front struts, which come pre-assembled with a set of lowering springs and the GT 500 strut mounts. New set of rear shocks as well as rear lowering springs and jounce bumpers are also included, along with a panhard bar to get the rear centered properly. Ford Racing tops it off with a brand new set of high-performance front and rear sway bars and all necessary hardware for installation. For this installation, let a lift and a pole jack or a jack and jack stands, 3/8 ratchet, 5/16 socket, 10mm socket, 14mm socket, 15mm socket, 5/32 Allen key, T40 Torx bit, short extension, 1/2-inch ratchet, 13mm socket, 15mm socket, 18mm socket, 19mm socket, 21mm socket, 14mm wrench, 18mm wrench, 19mm wrench, 22mm wrench, an adjustable wrench, panel removal tool, and a small pick. We want to begin the installation by getting the car up off the ground, remove all four wheels. After that, we're going to start with the front suspension. Honestly, it doesn't matter. We just find the front a little bit easier. First thing you want to do is remove 3 of the nuts that hold the strut to the strut tower. Remove 3 and just loosen up the 4th. With the strut nuts removed, we're going to move on to the sway bar and take that off. The sway bar disconnected. Next, we're going to remove the bolt back here for the brake line. Once that's free, also pop the tab off the bottom here for the ABS line. Now you can move on to the strut bolts. We're going to put a jack in place now just to support the suspension before we take off the bolts. These 2 bolts here have these retainers on the other side, so you don't have to put a wrench on them, just take the bolts out. Now that our strut's free, remove the 1 nut up top we left loose. And remove the strut assembly. Now we're going to grab the new assembled Ford Racing strut assembly and put it up into place. Want to make sure this notch here on the outside. Just get these hand tight for now to hold it in place. Like I said, Ford provides all new hardware for the installation. The hardware for the front strut is a little bit different. You have this offset washer, which is going to go on the bottom. This will go on the top. You can use 2 more conventional style nuts. The stock style hardware on the top is not going to be a problem, but to get to the new style nut we're using for the bottom camber bolt, you do have to remove the caliper to tighten it down. We'll put a dab of the provided Loctite on each of these before we put the nuts on. Now we can reinstall the caliper. We're going to reinstall the brake line and the ABS line. For now, we're going to leave the sway bar disconnected since we're replacing it. We'll repeat the process on the passenger side. Now the strut's still supported. We're actually going to remove these nuts we used to hold it in place. Again, put a dab of Loctite on each one, and tighten them back down. We're going to support the rear suspension and begin the installation in the trunk. Remove the rear panels by simply removing all the clips. And we're going to move the nut that holds the shock to the body. Now at the rear supporter, we're going to move on to get the sway bar out of the way. So we have 2 nuts on each end and then 2 brackets in the middle. The sway bar out of the way, now we're going to remove the lower mount for the shock. We put our new Ford Racing spring up in place, the original rubber mounts. Back into place, and we're going to remove our bump stop and replace it with our new one. I'll put our new softer bump stop up into place and install it with the new hardware supplied with the kit. Put our new shock up into place. Again, Ford provides all new mounting hardware for both the top and the bottom of the shock. Now we can move into the trunk and tighten down the top. Now you want to jack it up into place, make sure the shock goes in the proper opening. And tighten it down. Make sure the bushing crushes down properly. Repeat the process on the passenger side, and we'll move on to the sway bars. We're going to start the installation of the rear sway bar by grabbing the provided end links. Just put a little bit of grease on the outside face here before we put it up into place. You just put it up here with this open end facing towards the back of the car. The bolt through and just put it hand tight for now. You want to do that on both sides, then grab the rear sway bar. Now grab your rear sway bar itself. Take the rubber bushings that were included with the end links and put some grease inside of these. And split it and put it over the bar. Once you get in, just spin it a couple times and spread the grease around. Ready to go put it on the car. We're going to put some grease now inside the end links here. We're putting the bar in place. You want to make sure the forward is upright and line up the end links. You're going to have to sort of press them in. Get it roughly centered, and we can install the caps. Put a little more grease on the bushing first, and then grab the caps. Get them hand tight until you get both sides in place. Bushings for the end mounts, same idea. Put some grease inside there. Put a little more grease on the outside here. This is greasable. You can add grease later. The way this is going to mount, the plate's going to actually go up in here, and a bracket will go down below and bolt together to sandwich the bushing in place. Leave it hand tight for now and do the same thing on the other side. With everything loosely in place, now we can go back through and tighten it down. With the rear sway bar done, we're going to move on to the panhard bar. The panhard bar's main job is to center your rear axle. The issue is when you lower the car, now it's going to actually push the axle off to the side, so the adjustable one allows us to recenter it. And it bolts right back here facing the axle. Now just pull down and remove it. The new panhard is going to be adjustable, but out of the box what you want to do is adjust it where the stock length was. That's a great starting point. What I usually do is grab two bolts that we removed, put them through the stock one, and turn this and line it up so they're the same length. Once they're roughly even, we can tighten them down. I'm going to put a little bit of grease on the surface of the bushing before we put the panhard up into place. With the rear suspension finished up, now we're going to finish off the front by removing the sway bar. It's pretty easy since we already have the end links off. There's 2 nuts on this side on this bracket and 2 more on this side. And we're going to slide it back off the front studs and angle it up and out. With the sway bar off, we're going to remove both end links as they are reused with the new bar. The new sway bar is 3-way adjustable. You can set preload depending on what you're using the car for. Full back is going to be the firmest setting. Middle is going to be kind of a middle of the road. This will be the softest setting. We're going to go right in the middle. Now we're going to install the bushings and brackets on the sway bar before we put it back on the car. We're going to put some grease on the outside of the locating collar here. Push your bushing over it. Spin around a few times, make sure you get the grease spread out evenly. And put the bracket on so you can install. Now we'll put the sway bar back up into place. Put the end link up over the A-arm. End length through, nut back on, and tighten it down. Repeat the process on the other side and your installation is finished. The Ford Racing Handling Pack is perfect for somebody who's looking for a better quality suspension, more performance out of the ride, but doesn't really want to sacrifice a lot of ride height. There's a lot of spring kits out there that drop 1.5 inches, 2 inches. The 1-inch drop of the Ford Racing is a really nice combination for somebody who wants improved performance, but again, without sacrificing that ride height. Having gone on a few of these rallies, some of the roads we get are very sketchy, so I'm actually did the same thing. If you've noticed with my 2015, I only went with a 1-inch drop, because again, with what I use the car for, that's better for me. Instead of our usual test drive, we'll go find some twisty roads this time. The ride is firmer than it was before. Now keep in mind, this car has almost 70,000 miles on it. The rear shocks have been replaced, but everything else looked original. So the factory stuff was probably on the softer side for sure. It's definitely not an overly firm rod though. It's nice and tight. Feels real good in the corners. I mean, you point it and it goes. Try braking. Yeah, it brakes nice and straight, noticeably less dive as well, which is nice. Quarter ring's nice and flat. Give a little throttle coming out, it stays even, doesn't move around on you. It's a perfect suspension to take on a car that's going to be driven thousands of miles all over the country. When you find that right road, you really want to enjoy it. The Ford Racing Handling Pack we installed on Teresa's 06 GT should really improve her experience for this year's rally. The springs provide a nice 1-inch drop. The shocks and struts can improve overall handling along with the sway bars. On a suspension kit like this, you do want to make sure you get in alignment before you do a lot of driving. Installation time be around 3 to 4 hours, so you'll be back on the road in no time.